SAD operates in Odesa, Ukraine, providing mutual aid to unhoused folks in the city and building community every Saturday. While certain aspects of SAD, which stands for Garden in Ukrainian, are specific to Ukraine, as is operating under the conditions of war, their principle-based work can be applied anywhere. Today, we will be hearing from three of SAD's members, Mira, Kostya, and David.
I don't think that without a reading club, our collective would exist even, because before that, like, there were no leftist collectives here in the city.
This is Kostya. Kostya has been with SAD since inception, back when it was just a group of friends.
The reading club, the book club, was like an opportunity to put all those people together in the same room. Everyone proposed a text and we discussed the text, and at certain points we reached the limit that we wanted to take it a step further. We read a lot of stuff and wanted to do something together. At that point, a certain group of people formed, 6 people at that point, coming to the meetings, reading and discussing texts. Yeah, and one of the meetings, after the discussing of the text, we decided to create a collective that would work with homeless people.
Unlike many larger organizations, SAD was not founded by a charity fund. It was simply a politically oriented reading club that one day matured itself into direct action. SAD's members describe the collective as a group of people who have come together horizontally, have left anarchic views, and are engaged in political education for themselves. SAD realized that here, specifically in Odessa and probably in the world, the most oppressed category is the homeless, or more precisely, homeless women with disabilities, homeless LGBTQ plus people, and other multiply marginalized individuals. And so, they started working with the homeless. This grassroots approach limits SAD in its ability to scale the work, but Kostya believes that the drawbacks of not having as much funding are outweighed by the depth of impact of SAD's politically instructed approach.
Our collective would not exist without that principle of horizontal work. Yeah, it was kind of necessary for us to figure out how we can work with each other in the most ethical way. And of course, we don't want to dominate over the people we're trying to help, don't want to hurt them. Yeah, so we are kind of always thinking about how to build the most unharmful way with interacting with them. That's kind of more of horizontalist approach.
By horizontalist, Kostya is referring to a lack of hierarchy in the organization, something all members refer to as a cornerstone of SAD's functioning. While SAD's mission is not particularly unique, to restore people's sense of dignity in the condition they are in, SAD's means to this end is what makes SAD so distinct from other homelessness support projects.
Because we didn't do charity work, but specifically trying to form this relationship that we have as a mutual aid sort of thing. That's the key point in mutual respect in that regard.
This is David, another member of the collective. Both David and Kostya see relationship building and, more specifically communication, as the core principle of SAD. When at the weekly distributions, it's hard to tell apart members of the collective from the individuals they are serving. The way people interact and talk to and about each other is more akin to a potluck setting than charity giving out donations. No lines, no IDs, no formality, no strict rules, and no chaos either. There is a sense of authentic warmth and genuine friendship at the distributions, and that appears to drive the way people distribute the resources amongst themselves. No one can be seen hoarding or fighting. Friends know better.
Social workers positioned themselves above the homeless people that they were helping. Our job was to teach them the right way of living. We knew what's better for them. There was a lot of punishment involved in the work, punishing people for their bad behavior, whatever was considered bad behavior by the organization.
Kostya has had 2 years of experience working with homeless people prior to SAD, but unlike SAD, the organization he worked in was not structured horizontally, and that negatively impacted the work Kostya was able to do.
Of course, a vertical organization, there is international NGO, and yeah, there's the main man is in London, and it goes down to social worker at the bottom. Yeah, and that approach kind of carries over to the work. Yeah, and actually in a lot of cases made things worse for them. Yeah, because they were like depending on the help. I guess that experience was pretty negative for me, like working there for 2 years as a social worker. So yeah, like again, trying to figure out how to do things different has been a part of our work.
The intent to do things differently has taken SAD into multiple directions, one of them a commitment to transparency.
I mean, we're not silent about our political views, and we often talk about it, and we try to mitigate some things like racist remarks and like racist violence that may arrive, because sadly these things happen, especially to like people who are of Romani descent. So we're not silent about our beliefs, but the fact that we are not cold and we're trying to talk to them as equals, and we do actually do that.
David states that this honesty has been integral in changing the culture amongst the communities that SAD is aiding.
I sometimes have polished nails with some designs, and many of the people that I've talked to or gave out aid to, even medical aid, they were, well, at first, there were, of course, some like, homophobic jokes, and then it changed into curiosity and even like acceptance. Some of the newcomers say, like, hey, what's up with that guy with the painted nails? Is he gay? And that guy goes, no, stop saying it like that.
While being intentional with structuring individual relationships, the collective also cares for creating a community beyond giving out socks every Saturday. Under the principle of horizontal organization, SAD's members are all free to bring in their own ideas into the broader work of mutual aid.
That was not like intended when we started our work. Like it's kind of just happened because a lot of people who are in the collective, they do like, I don't know, record music or draw things or like build things with their hands, do graffiti, and we were trying to figure out what everyone can contribute to the work, like how can we interact with homeless people, houseless people, and everyone just kind of proposed, I can do this, I can do that, and developing, like seeing the talents of people, trying to figure out what they can do in our like common work. We're just trying to figure out what everyone can contribute, what's everyone's talents, what everyone like each member wants to do, and just do that.
With many in the collective being artistically minded, painting sessions also came up as a venue of validation for the folks experiencing homelessness. That they are not just homeless, but they are people, creators, artists.
This is more about collaboration and community building. It's really heartwarming to see people asking, are we drawing today? We hand out the papers, the paints, crayons, colored pencils, and seeing some of the works that they've made is some really out there and creative works with some cool designs, with really passionate vision, with a lot of emotion hidden through that painting.
And art making became a way to integrate all members of community into supporting SAD, not just those financially privileged.
We've told them straight away, like, guys, you're not only going to receive another cup of coffee and maybe a cigarette if you want. You can also draw with us. It's completely voluntary, and all of the money that we're going to make from these drawings are going to be reinvested back into the sets. And people were actually big fans of us being honest with this project, because we didn't try to make it exploitative, telling them upfront and earning a significant amount of resources to then give back to these people, and handing them also for example, T-shirts with their printed artworks, the postcards with their printed artworks. We're thinking of turning it in maybe some other sort of merchandise that we can either sell online to use this profit to further fund our org, and then to give to these people who are actually artists and whose art we're using.
While the art sessions bring in the funding that SAD needs, which you can see on SAD's Instagram at Street 8 Daily, there is a sense of bittersweetness in this community building process.
On the other hand, the fact that these talented and interesting and peculiar and queer people are left on the streets and are trying to survive while there are many empty housings and a possibility for everyone to have a home these days, it's really sad. And I think that's all that can be said about this line of work. It's rewarding, but also sad because we're not, actually fixing the underlying issue.
SAD is keenly aware that they are a small organization tackling a systemic issue as old as poverty, and this informs their mission too.
We are not content with just making the handouts every week or so, because these things do not help with the homelessness as a systemic and as an institutional problem. Our job as activists is to bring this issue under the spotlight.
Addressing homelessness at the structural level requires policy work, and SAD is aware of both their collective responsibilities and the limitations of their reach. The main aim of SAD is culture work, changing how we collectively understand and engage with the systemic issue of homelessness.
People of our age, like young Zoomers and millennials who are interested in like progressive politics and stuff like that, they're really interested in our project. And it's, actually nice to see us doing some work and not just writing some posts on the internet.
To SAD, it is not enough just to get people involved. Properly supporting those unhoused requires an accurate understanding of why they end up and remain on the streets.
There are a lot of queer homeless people, and at the same time, many of the homeless are really, really homophobic. But that means that many of the people who are now living on the streets of Odesa and other Ukrainian towns, they are often victims of homophobic violence.
SAD is passionate for reforming rather than rejecting individuals whose beliefs may be contributing to their own housing insecurity. As a result, those with homophobic tendencies are never pushed away from SAD's mobile distributions.
They are pretty much closed off about these sorts of things, but at the same time, that's interesting seeing how we communicate with people like that because of their closeness to large reactionary groups and them having a lot of, like, I wouldn't say superstitions, but some biases, and some of them are really conservative leaning despite them, living on the streets.
While meeting everyone where they are at, SAD cares for challenging those learned hierarchical beliefs and treats every Saturday as an opportunity to alter how the homeless view themselves and how they're seen by the broader society, whether that be normalizing men painting their nails or learning creativity, as opposed to obedience, through art making. The way SAD chooses what and how to challenge are grounded in the collective's political upbringing, which goes beyond the reading club. For Mira, the city's government carceral solutions to homelessness have been long contributing to the problem.
Been a journalist for like 15 years in Odessa, Ukraine. I was born in Odessa. It's my home city, with all its vices and disgusting things. Odessa used to be the city with so many homeless kids. Like before, I guess, 2000, year 2000. And then we had a program, and everybody in like NGOs and in this area, they were so happy that they like conquered. They stopped homeless kids from being in the streets, not caring a lot what's happening in the under custody, in the so-called closed institutions. Odessa is also a city, like in the center of the city, there were, used to be before the war, there were 3 prisons and 1 detention center, like in the center of the city. And I was discovering about tortures like there and in the police. And that's what I was actually doing before I came to be interested in problem of homeless people.
SAD's commitment to horizontal community building is a direct cultural opposite of the Odessa's government push for putting the homeless in institutions. While prisons provide roof and bread, the social conditions which inmates are subjected to often destroy people's abilities to form relationships, which increases their likelihood of ending up on the streets again.
Many of the people who technically are not homeless are just at hair's length away from becoming homeless. And I think that queer people are, as a marginalized group in Ukraine, are still at the big risk of becoming homeless.
Both homophobia and carceral culture increase social isolation, and housing security is often impacted by one's access to social support systems. And this is exactly the problem that SAD is addressing, breaking the prison to homelessness pipeline by helping the homeless community form resilient, sustainable social networks. All of this started from a reading club, and not too long ago. SAD's mutual aid initiative is about 3 years old, the same age as the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The proximity of SAD's activist beginnings and the start of the war are not coincidental. In fact, war has been a catalyst for SAD's mutual aid initiative.
Going to the homeless and actually working with them started when the war started. We existed as a group before that, but our like level of activity was pretty low. I would say we definitely started to do more activity after the full-scale invasion.
Active threat of oppression is a strong motivator towards collective action. And for SAD, war has pushed the collective to escalate their activity and also moved the broader community to provide SAD with the support and resources necessary for mobile distributions.
Before the war, a lot more people were like apolitical, like doing their own thing. But after the war, it's kind of created the urgency of collective action, and a lot of people realize how important it is to work together to solve problems. So our main work, like the mutual aid, like going to the homeless and actually working with them, started when the war started.
While war sparked positive social changes, it has also made the lives of SAD members more dangerous and the collective's work more challenging. Odessa is a port city crucial for Ukraine's grain export, and of course, Russia attacks it on a nearly daily basis with drones and missiles.
Kostya lives very close to the seaport, where they usually hit and aim. And he is one of, like, maybe he's the person who I fear for the most among my friends.
For Mira and many other Ukrainians, Russia's invasive violence has been ever present for long before full-scale invasion, both materially and mentally.
I was thinking about the war like since my childhood, and we had some events in 2014 in Odessa, motivating potentially pro-Russian people in Odessa, like by many different things, like not only with money, of course. And like I was feeling that was approaching, but also I'm coming from a very like pro-Ukrainian family, and it felt always like an opportunity and a threat. And I cannot imagine like being free from this threat. This anxiety, social anxiety, and like this rage that we have for things happening unfair will always stay with us.
The long presence, or rather awareness, of the conflict has influenced Saad. Even prior to the full-scale invasion, its members took efforts to learn self-defense.
The war started in 2014, and we also were thinking about learning those skills, not only because of the possible invasion, but because there's a lot of like far right violence in the streets actually. So yeah, we kind of from the beginning we thought about the importance of self-defense. War kind of made it very urgent development of those skills.
While most of the collective chose to learn self-defense in Odessa, one member is directly practicing resistance against the Russian occupation at this very moment.
Right at the start of the war, one of the members of our group enlisted in the Ukrainian armed forces and still is a part of the army and still at the front line. Yeah, for almost 3 years now. Yeah, and we're like in constant communication with him. And whenever he has a vacation, he comes back to Odessa and works with us, continues to work with homeless people.
The rest of the collective chose to prioritize work with the homeless first, but being prepared to physically resist the invaders from Russia is important for them too.
When the war started, we individually and as a collective started undergoing like different trainings, like in first aid. 2 members of our collective undergone training, like more like military training. It was like 5 days, learning how to carry weapons, how to patrol areas, how to dig ditches. We started going to the martial arts class together, kind of again to develop our capacities for self-defense.
Along with accelerating Saad's capacity for direct resistance, the current war has exaggerated many issues that result in homelessness, mental and physical traumas and disabilities, poverty, and the housing crises.
Within the collective, we started to talk about that fairly recently, maybe like 6 months, about like the nature of the housing crisis in the country, what exactly is the problem, how that connects to homelessness, how that connects to the number of homeless people on the street increasing, how the war connects to the housing crisis, how it like makes everything about the housing in the country worse, about how the rent prices are increasing, people fleeing the war who are not able to access any housing because they can't afford it, or because they have like big families and nobody wants to rent them an apartment.
The war has caused great suffering and provoked development of collective action. While there is no doubt that suffering will remain for long after the war is over, Saad has concerns about the post-war resilience of social unity.
A lot of people already are exhausted and tired, and I feel like a lot of people would really want to like exile like when the war like ends, but I feel like there is still a lot of work to be done after the war ends, because there is kind of also a danger of neoliberal reforms like taking over the country.
The war may have mobilized people to support Saad, yet it already is pushing many to the opposite end.
A lot of people just move to the right, also to more conservative side of things, not based on any research, just kind of my feel of things. But yeah, I would say like people who were left moved further to the left, people who were on the right moved further to the right, people who were in the middle kind of like follow whatever like the general, I don't know, the general mood, the general ideology that the government creates.
The political polarization and the threat of conservative reforms are some of Saad's biggest concerns for the post-war future. But what matters far more is the outcome of the war itself, which will determine, among other things, Russia's level of ideological influence over Ukrainian people.
Yeah, if this territory ever became a part of Russia, I think the laws and the government's attitude towards organizations like ours would be very strict if we happen to exist under the occupation. I think that would basically make our work impossible.
The way Russia operates, both as an expansionist empire and an aggressively authoritative state, is inherently incompatible with Assad's principles and action. The threat of Russian occupation is not a hypothetical projection for the collective. As the war is slipping away from the consciousness of their international allies, Ukrainians fighting for their land and people are literally running out of ammunition.
Excruciatingly small amount of aid were being given, the problems that come with Russia gaining a lot of ways to go around sanctions and to continue producing their rockets and other stuff. So the Russian military-industrial complex is still sadly going strong, and the reaction of international community is extremely lackluster. So this thing is really sad, especially for the last half a year, and it's not going too well right now. And we need much more aid and much more action from international community.
Assad has been strategic about delimiting funding they are able to receive from individual donors. $150 covers an entire distribution, including clothing, medicine, and food, or can be used to provide one person with housing for over 2 weeks. Despite worsening conditions of war, Assad is determined to restore people's sense of dignity in the condition they are in.
Continuing the work that we are doing, furthering the work that we are doing, starting to fight for affordable housing, for free housing, for policies like housing first. That's like what we can do as a collective for like the better, freer future.
You can learn more about the work of Assad and its people through their Instagram. Again, it is at Street Aid Daily. Their pinned post is a 20-minute documentary that captures the collective's community building practices at mutual aid distributions.
Specifically for me, my activism in helping the homeless people comes from the place of solidarity with them. And me being queer is just a thing that helps me realize that I have the solidarity and I am inclined to help them because of that.
You've been listening to Query, Madison's longest-running LGBTQ+ radio show on community radio WORT Madison. I am Matvey Mojaev, and thanks for listening.